Surface area of cylinders. A cylinder is just a circular prism, so if we're drawing the net of a cylinder, we would use a ruler, please. Shall I use a ruler? Because half of you didn't use a ruler in the last test. In fact, probably about 90% of you didn't use a ruler in the last test. Use a ruler. And like any prism, it is 2 copies of the cross-sectional shape, that is the shape that's the same at the front and back, or top and bottom, whichever you'd prefer to call it, joined by a rectangle that wraps around the perimeter of that cross-sectional shape. So this is the net of a cylinder. And when we draw a net, we label our lengths and you need the radius, of course, to find the area of the circle. There'll be 2 circles and this rectangular area. Now, if you remember my formula for finding the area, surface area of any prism, that will be 2 times the area plus the perimeter of the cross-sectional shape times the height of the prism. So this is the height of the prism, the different distance between the 2 identical shapes. The perimeter, as you remember, forms that rectangle, and I'd get the perimeter in this case by doing the circumference of this circle. Now we do have to remember the formula for the circumference of a circle, which is 2 times pi times the radius. And the area of a circle, so that's circle area, is pi r squared. So the total surface area is 2 lots of the area, that would be 2 pi r squared, plus the perimeter, which is 2 pi r, times the height. So the total surface area of a cylinder has its own formula, which is this, but it's based on that formula that works for any prism: 2 lots of the area of the cross-sectional shape plus the perimeter times the height to get the rectangle. So it's worth saying this bit, 2 times area of circle, this bit is the rectangle, the curved surface. Because you do need to be able to manipulate this formula a bit. Sometimes people will ask you to find the area of an open cylinder, that is, without the circles. So you'd have to leave this bit off. Or a partly open cylinder, like a water tank or something, with an open top and a closed bottom. You'd have to leave one of the circles off and just make it pi r squared. So there's all sorts of things that might happen with this formula. There is a version where it's been simplified, which you'll often see as TSA is, we've got 2 pi r is in both of these. If you remember your factorizing, we can factorize 2 pi r out of that. I'm not very fond of this formula because it's less useful, it's less flexible when we don't have one of the circles or something, but it is often seen as one of the formulae. I'm happy with this formula for the total surface area of a cylinder. Now I've totally used up all the space I needed for this question, so let's just bring this question down here. Sorry about that. So we've got a cylinder. We want to find its total surface area. We start with the formula. TSA is 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi rh. Equal signs line up, substitute your values. 2 times pi times 8 squared plus 2 pi times 8 times the height is 25. And you can simply put that all into your calculator. 8 squared is 64, let's take a shortcut, plus 2 times pi times 8 times 25. You'll get exact value. If you don't want an exact value answer, an exact value is in terms of pi, so 528 times pi. If you don't want an exact value answer, evaluate using your double arrow key. And units are meters squared. This line here is not necessarily needed, but remember, if you're going to be doing any further calculations with this answer, you'd be better off to keep an exact value as well as a rounded value. Now this shape here is a part of a cylinder. It can be useful to think of the net. So if we were looking down on this shape from the top, here's the front, we would use a ruler. I'd see a 4 centimeter by 8 centimeter rectangle. Then, folding the front down and the back down, we'd get 2 semicircles, and unrolling our rectangle. Oops, I forgot my ruler. Don't forget your ruler. Bad things will happen. And this will be obviously half the perimeter times the height, because only half the circle is present. So it can be really sensible to think about it in terms of a net. Remember that the radius has not been given here. This is the diameter, so the radius is 4 divided by 2, which is 2 centimeters. It's a good idea to write that down. So you kind of have to invent your own formula for this. There's one full copy of a circle here. So you can have pi r squared plus, there's half the perimeter of the circle plus this bit here. If we come back to my original formula, 2 lots of the area plus the perimeter times the height, the perimeter of this shape here is the circumference, or half the circumference of the circle, plus 4 centimeters. So you've got to be very careful to treat this as a prism. 2 lots of the area would be half of pi r squared times 2, so half times 2 cancels out, we've just got pi r squared, plus the perimeter is 2 pi r over 2, 2 pi r for the circumference, divided by 2 because there's half of it, plus 4 because there's this flat bit. That's our perimeter times the height. Now I realize I haven't substituted everything in, we're just trying to simplify out what our formula will be. 2 divided by 2 cancels out, so I'll want pi times the radius of 2 squared plus pi times 2 plus 4 times the height, which is 8. At that point you can substitute everything in. Pi times 4 plus, in brackets, oops, plus, in brackets there, pi times 2 plus 4 times 8, and I've got a total surface area of 94.8, and we're in centimeters squared. So it's all coming down to using that total surface area is 2 lots of the area plus the perimeter times the height, just adapting it for the situation of a cylinder.